We're back with That's Just How It Is. And before the break, Bilal was telling us specifically some issues that are plaguing marriages today.
Okay, some of the issues, I give you three main issues: sex, communication, and finances. Sex, communication, and finances. Those are the three major issues in marriages today that kind of plague our marriages, that bring about problems within our marriages. And, it gets specific, like I was saying before the break, is that, a particular case that I had working with a family, a couple, that he was complaining that his wife did not, want to have sex with him, as consistently as they did before they got married. And through working with the family, through working with this particular couple, what came out was that basically, she was just tired. She was just tired, overworked. She worked, they had children, and he just could not understand that her being physically tired was the reason as to why that they had this lack in their sex life. So, these are just some of the things, some of the understandings that couples have to communicate between each other to work these things out. If they don't communicate these, if she doesn't say to him, honey, I'm tired, and try to make time, set up, appointments as to, when y'all can engage in the activity.
Well, I know as a woman, it's hard to understand if a man claims to be tired, because we're under the impression that men always want it. And if a man doesn't want it, you tend to assume that he's cheating.
Right.
So,
right.
And I mean, but the problem comes in when, if someone is cheating, they're not going to come out and say, I'm cheating.
Right.
So, I mean, I think once you've decided to take your relationship that far, you owe it to yourself to get some type of counseling if you're having problems. Before you decide to go out and cheat, before you decide to just ignore the person that you're living with, sleeping next to every night.
Right.
I mean, as young couples, who wants to end up sleeping on the couch? Already.
Right.
Like, I've known older couples who for years are not even sleeping in the same bedroom. Like, what? Life is too short. Why would you end up in a situation like that? There has to be something you can do ahead of time, or as your relationship is taking that turn for the worse.
Well, it's interesting you bring up about couples not sleeping in the same bed together. Just because they're not sleeping in the same bed together doesn't mean they don't have a good relationship. Some couples do that. I mean, I've worked with couples where, they purposely did not sleep together.
I mean, if he's snoring.
Well, no. What they decided was that they were going to not sleep in the same bed as often. So this way, that helped them re-energize their sexual attraction for each other. So again, it's about what works for the individual.
Okay.
The couples have to come up, with a plan for themselves. There is no general remedy for everything.
Right.
It's all about the individuals.
Well, one thing that's important that we did touch on the last time was a book that you presented, and we had run out of time. And we want to talk about what specifically is plaguing the black male-female relationships through history. What has been the problem, the outside forces that are making us treat each other certain ways. Because if you're dating and some women decide to date outside of their race, because there's a shortage of men. We know that with HIV, with drug addiction, with the high levels of incarceration of our men, some women have decided that they're not going to limit themselves to a black man. They're going to try other types. However, for those women who can't live without a black man, what are some ways that we can deal with the ills that society has put on us, that we carry with us in all of our dealings on our job, in our relationships, dealing with our children? Okay, so you can reintroduce to us that book.
Yeah. Well, let's start. I mean, the book that you're talking about is by Joy Leary, called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And in her book, what she does, she looks at post-traumatic stress disorder. She's a clinical psychologist, social worker, doctor. And what she decided to do was look at post-traumatic stress disorder and how that related to Africans who were enslaved. And she looked at the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder and said that, hey, the Africans who were enslaved, definitely had post-traumatic stress disorder, all right? Because one of the criteria for it is that you had to experience ongoing trauma, witness trauma or abuse to yourself or others. And definitely the slaves experienced that. After experiencing that, not just one time, see, for post-traumatic stress disorder, it could just be a one-time occurrence, but for the slave in America, that was ongoing. That was 400 years of slavery, post-trauma, experienced trauma. And that trauma produced a behavior. It produced coping mechanisms. Those behaviors, behavioral patterns, coping mechanisms were handed down from generation to generation. And what she was looking at was how this has had a psychosociological effect upon us, not just us, but white America as well.
Right.
Now, you asked the question, about black male-female relationships and what can we do. I think just like going into relationships, know thyself, one thing is important, and understanding the complexities of black male-female relationships is know our history. We must know our history. We must know what we went through. We must know not just about our slave experience here in America, but our value system that we brought from Africa.
Okay. I think what happens, especially with our younger audience, is that they're so far removed, even from the civil rights movement, that it seems like to some that we're just going over this, and that it really should be put to rest. But what we don't realize is that the way that we deal with ourselves and each other is really unique to, a lot of other cultures don't deal with their women the way that we do. We know the issue with IMUS that just happened, and Reverend Al Sharpton is bringing hip-hop back into the issue because of the way that we choose to talk about ourselves, but not allow other people to talk about us the same way.
Right.
Now, that's like saying, well, I could talk about my mother, but you can't talk about my mother. To a certain extent, that's understandable. But on the other hand, why would we even continue to degrade ourselves and our women, and our children are watching? So you have a lot of, if you haven't remembered the civil rights movement, if you weren't young watching Like It Is and seeing the marches, you really have a desensitized feeling about it, and now you have what's being pumped into your mind, negativity.
Well, we got to take responsibility for that, the black community, the adults, the elders in the community, for not educating our young people about our experiences. But, as it relates to us in black male-female relationships, well, let's define manhood. What is manhood, and how do black men see manhood? For the most part, we define manhood, right, is our ability to provide. No. That's another definition. Just to have children.
Right.
But
not to father.
Let's talk about the true fundamental definition of manhood, which is number one, to provide for your family, right, to be the protector, and to procreate, right. Now, when you look at that, you have to look at societal's effect on our ability to be a provider for our women.
Okay.
A study was done that said you can take a black male and a black female with the same college degree, going for the same job. 9 times out of 10, they will hire the black female over the black male.
Right.
All right? So what that has done is usurp our ability to be the provider. Because, it's out there. Statistics are out there. On an average, a national average, black females make more money than black men. That has a psychological effect, an impact on us, and our ability, to provide for each other as a black man, in the relationship. And sometimes, depending on the sister, she can browbeat that brother.
Right.
I've had these situations take place, in my office, where the woman would complain about her man not making enough money to provide for her. So those two in that relationship kind of have to redefine their roles.
Okay, so ladies, let's appreciate our men if they are working hard to take care of our families. Let's try to be a little bit more appreciative and not as degrading. We're going to take another break. That's just how it is.